a foot or an inch, yeah, I fight for you all. It's the truth and I'm in, yeah, I fight for referee.
Welcome to Sunday Sessions, Volume 2, Black History Moment, featuring Sailor Art Thomas. Sailor Art Thomas, better known as Arthur Thomas, was born January 30th, 1924. He was an American merchant mariner, bodybuilder, and well-known professional wrestler. He died unfortunately on March 20th in 2003 at the age of 79 of cancer. Debuting in 1943, Thomas was spotted after he was touring with a bodybuilding troupe around the United States by promoter Jimmy Dimitrov. Thomas would usually be introduced as a plant in the crowd dressed in his Navy gear, and then he would oppose the heel's dishonorable tactics during the match. Standing at 6'5" and 275 pounds, Sailor Art Thomas was a gentle giant who parlayed his strongman act into main event status throughout US and Canada and Japan. We thank Sailor Art Thomas for his contributions to professional wrestling.
Welcome, 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 everyone. Sunday Sessions is back. I'm your girl, the Joshi Queen Supreme, Roni Big Bang Nicole, and thank you for being here for Volume 2 of Sunday Sessions. Sunday Sessions are conversations that evolve around Black wrestlers and our experience, because unlike our white counterparts, we have some layered concepts we have to deal with in addition to everything that goes into being a professional wrestler. These conversations are meant to highlight our experiences, to educate others about what we go through, and to give everyone kind of a fishbowl into the lives of professional wrestlers and what it's like to be us in one of the most beautiful, beautiful arts in the entire world. As I said, I'm Roni Big Bang Nicole. I am joined today by the Rev, Ron Hunt, and the King of Tea, Theo Ivory. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. Ron is actually my vet, so I'm very honored to be joined by him. And Theo and I, we have had limited actual locker room interaction, but one of my best and closest friends. I love you so much. Thank you again for being here. And always big shout out to Michael Sorg, Sorgatron Media. Make sure you're following my YouTube page and make sure you're following IndyWrestling.us so that you don't miss an episode. And I want to throw it to you guys because it's not The Office like Dunder Mifflin, but we're going to talk about The Office in terms of wrestling. We have all had to deal with it. That's where the business gets done. As Black wrestlers, our experience is oftentimes, a lot different. How we're booked into storylines, the angles we get put in, how much our pay is, the negotiation process itself when it comes to bookings, the consideration sometimes where some wrestlers will get trans or a hotel and you request the same thing because you're coming from a far distance and for some reason you're denied that. So all of those things go into the experience of dealing with The Office. So Theo, I'm going to throw it to you because you're a little bit newer in the biz. What has your experience been like thus far in dealing with The Office, especially where you are, and trying to navigate those waters as a wrestler of color in a changing climate all the time?
Great question. I'm going to be very honest because I feel like if you're in a position of privilege, you have to acknowledge that. My privilege is I'm a lot older than most people are when they start out. I'm in my 30s. So I came into this already with a professional background. I've been in corporate America since I was 20. So I kind of already knew the game. So when I came in, I knew how to maneuver in certain avenues, certain spaces. I knew what to say and what not to say if I wanted to get my point across whereas our counterparts, they don't have to tread as lightly as we do. Um, so I would say my experience thus far outwardly has been good. But when certain things don't happen, then I have to ask the question like, is it because I'm Black? Or like, why am I not getting the same consideration or things like that? So that's the part that sucks for me because I came in with a certain level of wisdom.
Mhm.
I just know so much is done behind your back. So I
Yes.
think a lot of stuff has been done behind my back, and they won't say it to me because I'm not a confrontational person, but I also don't take bullshit.
Right.
And I think people can see that from me. And they're like, this is not a guy I'm going to be able to bullshit. So I'm just going to ignore him.
Right.
And I think I get that a lot. And I'm okay with it because you ain't going to piss on my head and tell me it's raining, child. But in summation, that's my experience.
Yeah.
It's a lot of BS under the rug, but outwardly to my face, it's been fine.
Yeah. But there's always that level of what's going on behind the doors I'm not behind. You hear things through the
Hmm.
grapevine, things are mischaracterized, and it's like, well, I'm just trying to do good business. Why is it being characterized as anything else? Ron, has anyone tried to pee on your head and tell you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, first of all, I get a couple of marketing ideas through my time. Theo, you need to make that a shirt, and I'll be the first one to buy it. Let me just put
Right,
that on
same.
public record. But I think a lot of things that Theo said, Ronnie, hit spot on, and I think it was good to hear it from the level of where he is in the business and correlating that to where I am, and then when talking even to others, you see that the similarities are the same no matter what spectrum of the wrestling business that you are at, and that has definitely happened to me. And I tell you, even now, when you talk about negotiation and different things with certain companies, it's like, listen, just because we don't address something right off the bat does not mean that we are not acknowledging what we already know. We don't have
Yeah.
to address everything right then. And I think what happens is because you don't address something as soon as you hear it, then they think, oh, let's just keep on doing it. They don't know nothing. No, we do. We just tallying it up. And
Right.
and I think, I try to challenge everyone, when you feel that you are worth a certain worth and you're really honest with yourself. Now, black, white, brown, red, yellow, if you suck, you suck. Let's just
Right.
say that. But however, if you are solid and you are good, you are great, and there's a track record of you working with certain caliber people and the same compliments are coming, it's not BS, it's not anyone blowing any smoke. Take that and know what your worth is and stick to what you feel your price connected to your worth is. And I think a lot of times what happens is we get it from, our white counterparts of, oh, that's a great guy. He's real serious about this business. I want to do something with it. But however, if you look at the track record of it, when people of color predominantly address something and can address it the same exact way, rather they say it to your face or you hear it 9 times out of 10 through another source,
Right.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem, child. Oh, now you're the person with an attitude. You're the person that can't work well with others. All because you are not wanting equality, you're just wanting equity. And I think a lot of times what happens is it can intimidate you
Mhm.
if you're not careful because you don't want to be the problem child. So you want to downgrade yourself so that people are not seeing you as an intimidation factor. And really, no, you're eye to eye, if not a little bit further. But because you don't want to be known as the problem child, now you're willing to drop to a certain level, take a certain pay that's not even helping you break even. Also, people don't talk about you, or just like you said, Ronnie, where you're seeing people that booking rate by itself is higher than yours, and they're getting trans, and they're getting hotel, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're getting food on top of that.
Per diem, right. Yes. I've
You
never
know,
seen a United States per diem. I'll tell you that.
right?
Okay. Overseas, they're throwing it at you, you
You
know?
right?
Yeah.
But you see it. So I think, you know, what you said, Ronnie, and what you said, Theo, it's spot on, and it's something that we've been seeing for years. You know, I do see in certain standpoints that it has got better, but that honestly goes by company and organization by organization basis. And a lot of times, what I try to tell my brothers and my sisters, and this goes for our whole unit with Shane Taylor Promotions, is listen. If you are a leader, stick to your grounds. Don't worry about everything else. You sticking and being true to yourself has way more worth than you just, you know, bowing down and saying, yes, master, I'll take whatever you have. Thank you, sir. More chitlins, please.
That's true.
Stick to being the king, stick to being the queen, stick to your grounds. And if it's right, speak out on that and stand your ground and understand that it's going to pay off in the long run for you.
Yes.
But you
Absolutely.
remember how I said we have to acknowledge if we have privilege?
Yeah, we
Yes.
listen.
We also have to acknowledge that not everyone is in a place to do that.
That's true.
I mean, that's a
Yes.
whole nother conversation for a whole nother sessions. But
Yes.
it's very important to acknowledge that, like me, I'm single, I have cats. I can speak up, but
Right.
a person who has a wife, I would say like, I mean, I even say a man, a person who has a
Mhm.
spouse, children,
Right.
a mortgage, they don't have that flexibility to speak up because their damages are real.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, well, shit, I'll sleep on somebody's couch and my cat can come with me. But the person with 3 kids and a spouse and a mortgage can't run
That's
that
not
risk.
realistic. Yeah.
So that's another layer of it that doesn't get talked about enough.
I do think that that also is a layer that should just be skimmed off the top for everyone, because no one should feel fear for speaking out against something that has been done to them that's wrong, that's unfair, that's unreasonable. You know, we call it professional wrestling. So if you would like me to come to your location, I expect you to pay for me to get there. You know, when you pay for a plumber, you're not only paying for them to fix the plumbing, you're paying for them to get to you. You know, you're paying for their service to be of a convenience to you.
Right.
And it seems sometimes when Black wrestlers speak out and want those same things, and come out of the gate wanting those things because they see, you know, white counterparts receiving them, so why not? It creates like a dissonance, you know, and it really, I don't know how you guys feel, but for me, it's like, yo, what is it about me that's not enough for these people to respect me and to see that I'm worth this? I'm putting in the work and the time, and there's so many other wrestlers in the same position, but there's this layer of, you know, malarkey
Yes. Yes.
that you're talking,
Rubbish.
you know, yes, that keeps a fear, you know, within the wrestling community as a whole of you'll lose something, you'll be looked at as some type of way, you'll be kicked out of wrestling, and you know, and when we get to topic 2, we'll talk about people who were spoken out against and still are wrestling. So it seems kind of where's the what do we value there? But you know, so when it comes to negotiation, when you're trying to get booked at these places, especially somewhere new that you may not have a rapport with, or you've got somebody who's talked to the promoter for you, so you've got kind of an in to present yourself to them. What has your experience been at a company that has seen your value as a Black wrestler, and what has your experience been at a company where they clearly don't? And Theo, I'll start with you.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I've ever been valued as a Black wrestler. Um, a lot of times I have to wonder, am I a box that's being checked off? Or in my case, 2 boxes, Black and gay. So I'm like, I wonder like, oh, am I helping you meet a quota or something? And again, that's because like, I don't know if people have been bullshitting me because I expect a promoter to say, your match was good, you did what I asked, or it was, I wish you had done this differently. But when
Right.
I always get the feedback of, I was really entertained, you did what I asked for, I'd love to work with you again, and then I get nothing but radio silence. It's like, oh, did you find another colored to step in my box? And like, so as a black wrestler, I don't know if I've ever been valued at all. Um, I also want to acknowledge I'm only, July will be 3 years. I've been wrestling, so I'm also going to acknowledge that I'm still very new. Um, Unlike a lot of people, I don't have a look. Um, I have a very good character. So if you don't see my work, then you don't get me. So
Right.
I think that could be something else that I have. Maybe I don't have the look. So if my work isn't like, oh, here's Theo, like maybe you won't even give me a second chance. So it could be that. So there's other factors that I feel I could play into it, but I've honestly always just felt like I've been another body.
What about you, Ron?
Um, I would say the easiest way to put this is, I always went into it, especially, after I hit over like that 5 year mark. Now just I hit over 10, but you had to learn how to naturally come in the door with a chip on your shoulder, and a lot of times that's the bare minimum that you had to do just to feel like you were getting a fair shake. With a lot of companies that I began working with, there were bare minimum issues, mainly dealing with the financial aspect of things. And even now, unfortunately, people just type your name in, they know your worth right there. It ain't that hard.
Right.
But yet you still have people doing this push and pull.
Right.
And if I'm feeling good, if it's a good day, if it's the Lord's day that day, you might email me on a Sunday. I might say, okay, if it's my first time working with you, here's where I'm at. Can you hit it? If they can't hit it, how close can you get? And if you get me good, I'll say, we'll do this one time. But if you like what you see, which I know you will, full rate after that. This is the only bone I'm throwing you. And then you
Right.
tear the house down. But
Yeah.
I feel, unfortunately, being a black entertainer, you have to come in with a chip on your shoulder. I think it was one thing that my parents told me, and it's been a universal thing within the black culture, whether it's your parents, aunt, uncle, grandmother, whoever it is, you have to work 2 times, 3 times, sometimes 4 times harder than the average white person to just make sure that you are getting your fair shake, or at least where you should be.
Right.
That's the real world.
Yeah.
Now, the pro wrestling world is magnetized
Right.
even more.
Yeah.
So my thing is, I think it took me a little bit to not go from being angry to then using that as a blessing. Because can I say, woe was me, I got to go out here and I got to kill it and this and that and this and that. Can I complain
Mm.
about it? Absolutely. Why you got Johnny Boy main event over here and he can't get nothing?
Right. He's trash. He don't know a headlock from a hammerlock.
Yeah, he don't know
Yeah.
a headlight, like, bruh. But yet you're like,
Mm.
oh well, we'll just give you this and we'll give you 3 minutes, and then so I begin to look at it like this. If you come in with a chip on your shoulder, you have no other way to go but plus 100 if you're coming in 100. And I think in the long run, when you really look at that, if you're coming in at that level every time, you are naturally forced by your environment to be better. Even on your worst day, you'll be better than 3/4 of whatever said roster you were on. So I always looked at it in that mindset. But going back to your question, Ronnie, absolutely, you do see a difference in that, and you always have to adjust accordingly to it just to make sure that you're getting your fair share, especially as a black entertainer.
Yes. I definitely for me, I literally had to leave the country which I encourage all of us to do, just to have that experience. Because despite maybe some of the cultural differences, yes, baby, that passport ready to
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yes. Um, despite maybe the cultural challenges, because I definitely had to educate a lot in Japan about, things that were appropriate to say and not say, and please don't pull my hair and please don't rub my skin. It's not going to come off. Yes, this is brown within.
This is real.
Um,
This is really me.
this is really right. I exist.
This is my actual
Despite,
skin color.
yes.
It's not from a can or a machine.
Because people, and where I was, the original dojo was in a place that was just old Japanese people. So they literally had never left Japan or seen a person of color. So their understanding of us was just what they saw on TV, which we know is not ever really characterized well.
Yeah.
And so, they see a person of color who just is plopped in the middle of this country. But there was still, once they understood about professional wrestling, that was what elevated me. It was almost as if being a wrestler out of the country supersedes my blackness, because it's so much more respected in a way. Whereas here we
I was
kind
gonna
of
say that I don't want to say it negates your blackness, but
but
they don't look at you as a black wrestler. Now
yeah,
you're just a wrestler because you're
yes,
speaking their language.
yes.
Yeah.
And it was, honestly, I felt more myself overseas than here because I wasn't worried about being black. I just had to worry
Yeah, I've
about,
heard that so much. I've heard that from Sahara, Renee
Mhm,
Michelle. They were like when they were
mhm.
in Japan, it was just about wrestling. Like, those are some you two girl, y'all some bad bitches. But over there, it's like, we don't care that you're pretty. We don't care that you got big tits, bitch. Can you wrestle?
Yes. And it is a different dynamic because here the emphasis is so, especially as a woman, is so put on,
Mhm.
what do you look like? How pretty are you? What do your boobs look like? What does your butt look like? Can you do all the cute moves that look good for the camera?
Are you okay
Whereas,
with extensions?
right, like, and I mean, obviously, but
Well, let me
okay.
not do that before they start talking about me online, but I'm with
Listen.
you.
I don't 27 or longer, baby. Okay. I need 27 or longer. Like, they weren't worried about that. No one paid attention to me until after my first match where I got the snot beat out of me and I got back up and gave it. And then
Mm.
it was, okay. So you don't think you're just cute. You don't think you just deserve to be here. Like, you really want to be here. You understand our
Mhm.
art, and that's where the change came. Whereas here, sometimes walking into locker rooms, it's like, no matter how much you love the art, you're
Mhm.
still negating those racial layers and the political layers in the office. And are you, in my experience, guys, I'm extroverted 2 weeks out of the month. Okay. So that's all I
Two
got.
She said
days
two.
for
She
me.
said 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
But
I
two
give
weeks.
y'all a good 2 days. That's it. Leave me alone.
But back when I came in, a big part of networking was if you're going out drinking after shows. And so when you're trying to break in, that's how you broke in, was if you came and helped set up the ring and then watched the show, helped out with the show, and then afterwards you followed everybody to wherever they were going and then you went and cut loose and whatever. But for me, I wasn't raised like to party in business. So
Mhm.
it was always like a
Right.
weird, like you were saying, Theo, I came in with the mindset of this is business. Like, I want to be somebody and do something. So let's make that paper, tell some stories. Let's be out here and do it. So have you guys like encountered those situations where it's been like, that this is what they want you to do, but you're just like, it's no. Have
Do
you
you
guys
mean match wise or just like in wrestling in general?
booking, like in wrestling booking, like if you're trying to go to a company and you kind of know, okay, I'm gonna have to hang out with these people or go, you know what I mean? Like, there's more than just, here's my resume and my qualifications, sir or ma'am or whatever your pronouns are.
Mhm.
I would like a job, please.
May I have some more?
Please, can I have some more?
Have you guys like been in a situation where you kind of read it and it's like, man, Ron, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I would say that and honestly, I will tell you that still happens today. And you know, I think now you don't really get it mainly from the people in the office, but when you can kind of read a room, then you understand. And it's one of those things to where a lot of these companies, you know, a lot of these companies don't want to do business. They don't want to do business with businessmen, but they just want to do business with clicks. And the thing is, like, listen, clicks don't pay the bills, bruh. Like, listen, I can fist bump you and dap you up every day, but if we ain't talking business, no bills are getting paid, no family's getting fed. And you know, a lot of times, you know, they try to guilt trip you into it all. Well, you know, well, I guess he's too good. He's a superstar now. He does this, he does that. No, I'm just treating it like a business. You don't see me if I'm going on a shoot job talking to my boss after, like, hey, after this meeting, man, you know, we trying to hit the club. Like, no, once I clock out, I clock out. When I clock in, it's business. That's that. And you can get the best business during that time of me working. And so I think that is something that still happens even now. But, you know, even to one of the things that like Theo was about to say, just even in regards of, you know, matches and certain things like that, even if you want to go a little bit more focused within that, it's one of those things that even happen, you know, within that, where you get put into a little bit of a box and you know, and you have to look at it at that way. But I still even say, like, even right now, when you go to what you're looking at in regards of reading the layout of the room, reading the layout of the people, it still happens today. And the fact is, you know, do you go about it? Because I think, you know, the thing is, it's almost on like a per situation basis. Sometimes, you know, companies are solid, but they, you know, they want more of like that locker room turns in the family, and then, you know, maybe go out after. But then you have those companies that is just a good brother, good sister click type thing. That's a whole different atmosphere. If we treat them like a family and there's respect there, and there's respect there, yeah, sure, I might grab a bite here if I ain't got to hop on a flight or drive and do something long, double book or something cool. If we treating at that level, not understand that there's a respect there. But as soon as we start getting into this click type thing where you can clearly see it visible even in the locker room, then that's when I don't associate with it at all, because we're not doing good business at that time. It's about a popularity contest. And if you about that, keep your people there. I'm going where the business is going. And people respect that in the long run, whether it's to your face or not. They do respect that in the long run, regardless if they're your enemy or your best friend.
That's true. What about you, Theo?
I was gonna say this was, I want to say, fall of 2020. Like after the whole speaking out thing came, we had like a big meeting. It was our locker room plus a few other locker rooms from New York. You know, we were all at the dojo, and they were like, you know, it was like a back and forth thing. And when I gave my piece and I said, you know, the big thing that I noticed here is people don't know what professional means. I said, I love you guys. I was like, but ain't none of y'all niggas my friends. I said, and I said, I don't mean that offensively. What I mean is, I'm a professional wrestler. This is my job. Even though I love to do it, and it's like my heart and soul, I breathe it, it's still my job. I didn't come here to be friends with anyone. I didn't come here to be friends. I didn't come here to find somebody to smash tomorrow.
Right.
I came here to live my dream and do what I love. So I come to training, and when I'm done with training, I take my black ass home. Because I'm not here for any of that.
Right.
And I think that could be because we're all, I think, in our 30s, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's just us in our age and our wisdom, knowing there's just certain things you don't mix. Now, if it becomes organic, and I said this too, I said, now, if it's organic, that's different. Like you and I, Ronnie, just organic. It just happened. Like shit like that, you can't help.
Yeah.
But I'm not walking in there like, oh my God, can you be my friend, please? Like, I'm not doing that.
Please, sir, may I have some friendship?
Right. Like, no, I'm not here for that. If it happens, great. And I think what Ron was saying about the clicks, you see that, and I see it all the time. Ugh, I'm like,
And it's rough.
and it's normally not us.
No.
I'm gonna just say that.
Yeah.
But on the booking side of things, I haven't had any issues to where I was like, what do you want me to do? And I think because I look at the business from a perspective that I wish other people would look at it, specifically WWE. Part of it is entertainment. We're entertaining you. We're actors. We
Right.
are no different. Like if you're watching USA at 8:30, we're no different than you turn into, I'm about to say UPN and show my age.
Yes, the fuckers.
Right. Come on, girlfriends, and one-on-one. But it's no
Hi, Flex.
different. Right. Come on, spirit.
Yeah.
But it's no different than you turning to any other channel and you seeing those characters be portrayed by live people. It's just our method of entertainment goes beyond sitting in front of a camera or walking past a green screen. We're doing live entertainment through athleticism.
Yeah.
So I look at it as like I'm an entertainer. This is the role they're asking me to play, and I get paid for it. Like, you think people want to play drug addicts and prostitutes in movies?
Awesome.
But they're like, no, let me show them that I can rock this shit. And I
Right.
can show them just how talented I am. Same thing with us.
I do
Don't
think
ask me,
there's
but don't ask me to play no goddamn Twinkle Toed Fairy because I'm like, no, you can call somebody else
for
who
that.
that is
Right.
actually authentic to them
Too. Mm-hmm.
and let them portray that versus me pretending to be something that I'm not and becoming a caricature of a certain culture or a certain minority group, so to speak. But like, that's the only time I would have an issue with something. But I
Yeah.
haven't been put in those positions. So
I distinctly remember a place that I will never wrestle for again, where it was if you didn't go to the promoter's house afterwards and engage in all of his revelry.
Foolery.
There we go.
oh,
Yeah.
child, oh, not Moolah.
Okay.
Okay.
You were not considered a part of the family. Guys, I'm just gonna say the memoir will have more details. There was a very well-known wrestler who was always coming there, and he was all about the revelry, right? And he was the champion and was always at the top. And then the moment that he got into hot water and had to stop doing that, big old stanky boot. And this is like a name. You know what I mean? Like he'd been to Japan.
We got each other's number, girl.
Like, listen, we'll talk off record because it was just, there was, and I'm not, listen, I got a sink full of dishes right now. Okay, guys? So I'm just going to put that out there. But the amount of fleas that were on me at this promoter's house, okay? Unacceptable because there were no pets in the house, guys. So where did they migrate in? Was like, what was the situation with the nature being in the carpet? I didn't,
I
but
read it.
it was such a, people understood it and were dying to come to this promoter's house and like hang out and listen to his stories and do all the accoutrement, if you will. And it was
This is
but
why I don't go to people's house, child.
listen,
They're like, you want to come over? No, because if I
No,
come over
thank
and your
you.
house is nasty, I'm leaving.
and I can't look at you the same, and I am too I can't be up all night. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? What's on the wall? What's on the floor? What's fighting
Yep.
me? Like I can't. And that's
Is
how it
my
was.
why my ankle itching?
Ron, I was
Ooh,
wearing
is that
the
a
knee
stain on the
socks.
couch?
Okay,
Oh
I
my
was
God, is your
wearing like the
toilet
anime.
dirty?
I didn't go in the bathroom. You couldn't go in the bathroom. Do you understand what
I
I'm saying?
wonder
There was something
why.
furry growing behind the toilet. I don't know how it grew behind it. Anyway, we're getting off track, but it was. I had to wear Japanese anime girl knee socks to protect myself from the fleas, people. Okay, it was a nightmare. But this man would not book you, especially if you were a woman, if you did not come to his house at least twice. And it was understood. And it was just a normal thing that people did. And people are getting blitzed and just falling out and passing out and missing their bookings for the next day and, leaving late and getting phone calls from family like, where are you? Like you're supposed to be on the road. And I'm like, is that worth us going and doing our job just to hang out with someone who clearly is just very lonely? Like, I don't. Yo, stop making that face.
Girl, you know I can't be fake.
Right. Listen.
Like the Lord won't let me do it. Maybe that's why I'm not signed.
Listen, one day, and keep in mind, I heard something that Kev on Stage said. I don't know if y'all know him, but
Oh, that's my boy.
I love Kev on Stage.
That's my boy.
Yes, but he said that sometimes what you want, the place hasn't been made for you yet. And that resonated with me because I was like, I feel like that is very true, that as wrestling continues to change and more places are coming, that there is going to be a place for wrestlers of color to have a home in a sense and create a network of opportunity, not just for wrestling. If you want to learn ring announcing, why not learn how to do producing? If you want to do meal prep, why not learn how to do some dietitian stuff? Like we're able to, especially we as Black people, we always find a way to make it more and to advance and to bring community into it. And I feel like I'm very optimistic about that, guys. So yes. So leaving the office, we are going to the game room. Okay, are you guys ready? We're gonna play Connect.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I share something with you guys really quick?
Yes,
There's a term that I think in wrestling, well, in life, but it applies so much in wrestling, and it's unconscious bias. And for the people watching who don't understand what unconscious bias is, by unconscious bias means like when it comes to us being Black and trying to get booked, like a white person can reach out to you and say, hey, I train here. I love to work one of your shows. Okay, cool. Send one of your matches over. But a Black person says, hey, I'd love to get booked on one of your shows. Okay, where do you train out of? Who's your vet? Can you send over 5 matches? Can you also send over some references? And they may think like, oh, I'm a promoter. I'm just doing what I need to do to vet this talent. But they don't realize that they're making all the Black talent go through certain hoops and certain obstacles that others don't go to. And the big example that I want to bring to people's attention is, I hate to say it, but the E. Look at Big E. Look at Kofi Kingston. That's unconscious bias because they weren't given that opportunity because they earned it or deserved it. Kofi got it because if they didn't put it on him, then it's going to be like, all right, y'all niggas really are racist. And then with Big E, there were no other options. So it was like, might as well put it on him. And with the women, they talk about, Jazz's career, and like we try to bring up how Black women haven't been respected. And they're like, oh, well, Jackie was the first this, and the cruiserweight champion, and Jazz was this. And I'm like, okay, why did Jackie get those accolades? It was because, listen, girl, we ain't doing that.
I didn't say anything.
We ain't gonna do that.
I don't know. I didn't.
We ain't gonna do that. We ain't gonna do that.
I haven't done that, which is maybe why I don't have a contract. But
listen, that's why I'm not signed to a lot of places, child, because my body count is zero.
Honey, if I could, if it would do it, you know what I'm saying? I'd have the bill.
I mean,
let's just call it what it is. I'd have the bill. Okay.
But the point I was making was the reason why Jackie got those accolades was so it would put Sable over. And when Sable won, it would be credible because she beat the toughest, pound for pound, toughest woman on the roster. The reason why Jazz got those accolades is so when Trish Stratus beat her, Trish Stratus would look legitimate. So it wasn't about elevating the Black women. It was about elevating the white woman through the Black woman. So that's the unconscious bias that I speak of because they think, oh, like Jazz is the first Black woman to go into WrestleMania with the women's title and defend it and walk out with the women's title. That's true, but Jazz's whole title reign was about Trish Stratus. It wasn't about Jazz.
Right.
Same with the Black people. It was about, all right, let's keep this belt on Kofi until we find something. He never got a rematch.
Right.
Big E never got a rematch. Drew big ass got 3 matches in a row, child.
Yes.
So sorry for the rant, but
no,
that's the unconscious bias that exists in this business. So when people try to throw the few Black names that have made it to the top, and it was like, through who? Or who was the end goal? They were just the big stop, but it was a white person at the end of the finish line.
Yes. Ron, I see you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I'm going to say this real quick. But first of all, Bishop, Apostle, Prophet Theo, we're going to raise an offering for you on tonight.
Pass the plate.
Wait,
hold on. Let me sit in my chair.
We're going to pass the plate. You've been talking very expeditiously.
I'm sorry. I told y'all I got time today.
Right. Spreading the good tea. Yes.
Right. Yeah, you got the good
and
stuff.
The good words.
And the good word. Yeah.
One thing that Theo said that I think really resonate, and not only, at the highest tier per se, one of the highest tiers, but pro wrestling as a whole. When I had this conversation with my brothers, what I begin to realize is that there's a trend, and what Theo is saying is correct. And what I begin to realize, not only personally with myself, but with others, and I know that we can all correlate to this. I know, Ronnie, you can more likely correlate this a lot of times, is when you look back at your career or some of these opportunities, what you begin to realize is being a Black wrestler, you will have so many times that you are good enough to be put in the big picture, but not be the big picture. You're good enough to be in the main event. Yes, thank you so much. But how many different title matches are you going to give and just have me lose just to make your person look good when it feels like you have to be the next Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the next Stone Cold Steve Austin, the next this, the next that. You got to climb. And then 3-4 years later, when you've been at the same company for 3 to 4 years, then you finally win something big there.
Right.
But however,
when there's no other options,
when there's no other options, when once again you get to that point to where you're wrestling with a chip on your shoulder, when you learn how to do it to where you're undeniable. Now it looks stupid if they don't, because everyone else sees it that they have to force their hand. And what a lot of people don't understand, even when you go back to the history of Black Wall Street, when we come together in unification, there is power behind that. And when your color don't speak, guess what color does speak? Green. And when green speaks, then they move. And I would say this, and listen, I don't care, Vincent. If you see this, Vinny K, I don't care. But when you even look at it, check this out. When you've seen how all this has been happening, how Black wrestling draws went viral. Kofi and them doing their thing went viral. A lot of these moves did not happen until during or after the protests of George Floyd. Why? Because there's a reason. Because they understand that now, okay, we have people over here that see this and regulate with this. Why did it take us this long to now all of a sudden we see indie shows when, God forbid, this is telling age, now they're doing, I forgot what the reunion is, but you see indie shows doing things at Warped Tour. What is Warped Tour? A predominantly white music group. Now all of a sudden you see WWE doing a partnership with Rolling Loud. You see Vince McMahon at a Dave Chappelle concert. Because no matter what company you are, when your color don't speak, green speaks. So if you keep being you, and once again, backtrack what I said before, acknowledge what your worth is, the fans acknowledge that, and no matter what's happening in the office, the fans are always the boss. You just keep doing you, keep showing up, keep doing what you have been called in this business to do, and green always speaks. And a lot of times they'll roll with green. They might not want to, but it forces their hand to.
But that's what it is for us as the coloreds.
Yeah.
If when we decide, oh, I'm going to speak up in this meeting, when it comes to a white person, it's like, oh, what are their qualities? We know what are their qualities of a good wrestler. Okay, yeah, let's give them an opportunity. But when it's a Negra that speaks up, it's okay. So what are the income projections on that? You know, what are the sales that you project for merch?
Slide deck.
Yeah. And this was something I really wanted to add because Ron, you hit on this. Like you keep putting them in opportunities. Anyone who don't know me, I'm a stand for women. So y'all can talk about the men's all y'all want. I'm the historian when it comes to the women. I'm gonna bring y'all back to 2013.
Oh,
Naomi was practically the GOAT at that time.
Poised.
To find a match that I'm sorry, you said, well, go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
I said she was poised.
Yes.
2012, 2013, Naomi, 2011.
Actually, before she turned heel. So what was it, 12, 13, and 14?
Yes. But even before that, they were building, it looked like, to something. They were giving her more time. It became more like, it was almost like her Black girl magic was able to be born, and she hit a lick every time for 4
But she barely
years.
ever lost. If you look at it to try to find a match in like 2013 or 2014 that Naomi lost, you're gonna find like 2 or 3 because she was always winning. I'm gonna ask you a question. How many Divas Championship matches did Naomi get? I'll wait.
Right. And we will continue.
But Lil Paige is gonna pull up and get a title shot and win in her first match. Naomi pinned AJ the Divas champion at least 4 times. Never got a title shot.
Not a shot in
Natty may have, Natty and AJ traded victories back and forth. Natty got at least 2-3 title matches. Brie Bella got 2 title matches on pay-per-view. Paige kept getting title matches on pay-per-view. Naomi didn't get a single one. So, like, I wanted to bring that up so people really get the picture of why is it that this Black woman who's hitting all the marks, and obviously she's doing something right because y'all keep having her go over every week. Why isn't she being put in that position that you have no problem putting a white girl in, regardless of her level of experience?
Oh, we've seen it because we've seen the injuries, and
Do we want to go down the list, child? Like, don't get me started. Now, I love Ashley, but next topic, child, because like I said,
well, you did hit on something earlier that I do think we would just transition into, which was last summer. We all witnessed a few weeks of catharsis within the wrestling community. And that was hashtag as speaking out, which piggybacks somewhat off of, I guess, Time's Up in, the broader entertainment community. And there were a lot of people who came forward and they spoke about things that had happened to them. A lot of experiences were very grave and traumatic and highlighted some terrible things that went on in the community. And then there were some experiences that just seemed like maybe a bad date or a poorly chosen relationship, or maybe not acknowledging the circumstances as they were, but only as you wish they were. And again, it was a very mixed bag of scenarios that came out during that time, and we don't in any way want to invalidate the experiences of people who were victims and experienced abuse, because that's not, in my opinion, what wrestling's about, and that should never come into the sharing and the teaching and the growing of our business. But then you had a smaller movement that came out that was talking about racism in wrestling, and the juxtaposition between the two, between what got more quote unquote airtime in social media, what had a longer span of focus versus what didn't. I think we all know what happened, but it was just very a stark contrast to see that so much focus was given to speaking out. But when there were wrestlers who were, hashtag promoters so racist, black wrestlers matter, bringing these things within the black wrestling experience to the forefront, it was literally met with, oh, well, The Rock was a champion, Booker T, Kofi.
That's it.
So,
But you see how it's like, wait, 1, 2. Oh, there were 3. There were 3 of you guys. Yeah.
yes. So without, diving too deep into the speaking out situation, how did that play out for y'all in real time? Like while that was going on? Because it was like speaking out happened, and then right after that, the whole "hey guys, racism is an issue too" thing happened. So how did that play out for you
It
guys?
sucks for me because there was a very big speaking out story that was happening with someone who's currently signed at the E. I'll tell you about that later, child. But I knew the real story because I was there when the speaker outer got served. So I was actually there. And I'm like, you really gonna sit up here and lie on that man like that? But I ain't dying on no hill for no white man. So I was like, let me mind my business. He got money, he can take care of that. But what bothered me about the movement is there's a huge difference of me telling someone no and they're continuing to do God knows whatever it is they're doing. There's a huge difference from that versus me continuing to stay in a relationship with someone who ain't shit. And I'm sorry, a lot of these white people get on my nerves because I'm like, are y'all some bitches or y'all some grown folk? Because if somebody's treating you not in a good way, you get your ass up and you walk the fuck out. Like, once you decide to sit there and accept that treatment, you're responsible. But we're not, again, for the people who may want to pick and choose, we're not talking about people whose lives were threatened, their safety was threatened. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the people who are like, oh, he was cheating on me. He was talking about my family would never talk to me again. And I'm like, okay, but bitch, you stayed. You could have made a couple phone calls. You could have prayed. If you do some crystals, you could have did that. Whatever your thing is, you could have taken the steps to better yourself. So that's not the same as a woman or a man, a non-binary person who was violated against their will.
Right.
Like those are two very different things, and people were trying to blend that.
Yeah, and conflict.
And it kind of muddied the movement, because then it got to a point where people stopped caring because there were so many of these bullshit people trying to get attention that they took the focus off of the real survivors.
Yeah.
And that's what bothered me, that people, grown people, still don't know the difference between, no means no, I was violated, versus I allowed myself to stay in a situation that I knew I should have walked away from.
Right. Yeah. Ron, what about you? Did you see any, I know Theo covered a lot of the breakdown of speaking out, but what did you see in terms of speaking out versus, when we spoke up about the things that were going on?
I would say, it was definitely a juxtaposition, and from my own personal, from where I was at prior and had someone that was relatively close to that particular situation. That was before I even got to that location, and I was blown away. I'm like, yo. But I would say the big thing that stuck out for me is you had so many supporters from the outside that weren't directly connected with the speaking out movement coming to support the issue and coming to support the victims, which I believe is important if you are a legit victim. On the contrary of that, there were so many supporters that came in general for the overall wrestling speaking out movement that certain wrestlers began to understand the power that was behind having the number of supporters, and they started using the speaking out movement as a business move to elevate their career. And even now there are wrestlers that are capitalizing off of the ignorance of supporters that don't know the difference between a victim and someone that's trying to use the system of the speaking out movement to grow their own business. And that's unfortunate, because you, just like Theo said, you have real victims and you have those that are just looking to capitalize. But the reason that you have people wanting to capitalize is because there was a strong support system. Now let's look at the speaking up on this racism. You don't really see the support. What you see is people thinking, oh, well, here goes the black people again, always thinking always thinking like they deserve something. This called just put in the work and you'll get where you need. You don't see the same sincerity. You don't see the same heart. You see some of the same people that have been supporters for the speaking out movement now be antagonizers for the speaking up movement.
Yes.
Or be silent.
Or be silent. And my whole thing is this. And this was even back when I was younger in school. You deal with bullies and stuff like that. If you are silent, then you are just as guilty. And what I think is a lot of people either you would understand when people outside of people of color were really supporters, because these will be the people that not only would DM you, but will try to put together things publicly. But if you're just DMing me, but yet when you see me getting attacked publicly, and I see it, and you don't respond and come to my aid in a public matter, then you are just as guilty. On the contrary, there are the people that were hashing out so much, not because they might have not believed it, but because they have a guilt of their own, that they've seen the same stuff that people are talking up against, and now if they combat it, then that means that they can push it aside and say, that ain't really happening.
Yep.
But just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean that it's not happening.
yard, for a foot, for an inch. Yeah, I fight for you all. Is the truth, and I'm in. Yeah, I fight forever.